Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Conversations with Coaches podcast, lessons version. I keep wanting to call them mini-sodes because I like portmanteaus. But anyway, you know what this is. This is me, Kevin, talking to you again, inspired, having my cup running over with inspiration from a lot of the conversations I've been having in the last, well, it's pretty regular. I was going to say in the last month or so, but really it's been the last year and a half at this point. Anyway, I was having a conversation with a coach recently for the podcast. I don't think it's live yet. Actually, it might be. Anyway, you can check it out yourself. It'll be in the show notes. But we were talking about storytelling, which is obviously a pretty important aspect of a lot of coaches' journeys. A lot of their coaching comes from their own story. A lot of coaches are directly like storytelling coaches, how to turn your story into something that can actually benefit not only you, but the people around you, the people you work with, et cetera, et cetera. So we were talking about storytelling, and we got to talking about stand-up comedy. And it turns out that we've both had a similar admiration for the work of stand-up comedy. Obviously, you know, what you often see is like the hour-long special or whatever, people on a big stage, bright lights, big crowd, theater. They've got this tight hour or whatever, where it's just like each joke feeds into the next, and there's like this cohesive story, and there's callbacks. It just looks like this just perfectly assembled and well-oiled machine, with the greats anyway. What you don't often see, unless you happen to be a fan of that comic, or you go to seek it out, or you're someone who just, you know, goes to comedy clubs, you don't see the work that goes into that behind the scenes. And I say behind the scenes, but it's not really behind the scenes. It's all right out there. These stand-up comics, they go up on stage and they try out new material. They go up there with notebooks and a glass of water and they try stuff out. They'll often pause their performance to consult their notes. They will bomb. And by bomb, I mean just be so unfunny and unentertaining so as to have the crowd almost turn on them. And these are people who make a living, in some cases a very good living, doing this. And they continually will go when they're trying new material, and it'll just fall flat. But what they'll do is they'll learn, this worked, this didn't, or this works here if I put this after and this before it. The crowd responds to this. This crowd in this other location responded differently. And so they're constantly gathering bits of information from what you might be tempted to call repeated failures. And what a good stand-up comic understands is that those quote unquote failures are absolutely crucial to their craft. And I just love that concept. I love thinking about that in the context of coaching and storytelling and just business and just life in general, is how much of the required work is just about getting up there and doing it. Just do it. And sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes it's really not going to work. And sometimes you're going to fail miserably. And that is part of the process. That is what allows you to refine your methods and grow your work and figure out what's funny, or in certain other cases, what's going to really impact your clients and what's really going to impact the people you work with and work for, and the people that you serve. I find it completely fascinating. We actually, in our conversation, as we were talking, we kind of compared it to a science, because there's just a whole lot of trial and error. I mean, you think about the scientific method, you come up with a hypothesis and then you test that hypothesis. I think this question will elicit the right kind of answer from my client. You can try it out. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Or work, it's not really a one-to-one thing. Most often things don't just work or not work. There's just something in between where it kind of worked, or it made some progress, but you know it could be better, or it kind of went sideways. And so maybe you need to rephrase it or reframe it, ask it at a different time or stage in the process. There's all sorts of ways to apply it, but really there's such a science to it. It is really trial and error with an eye and a heart towards greater service. You know, I think you all know this because you're all driven in large part by a desire to give back, by a desire to serve your clients and your people with impact. So anyway, I find stand-up comedy and the process behind it to be a fascinating way to look at the other things that we do in our lives, performances, the other things we attempt to do for people, and how we can grow and make them better in a way that makes sense. It's not just you either have it or you don't. Most people who are funny professionally, they might be funny instinctively or have always been funny at family gatherings, but they all worked their tuchuses off. They all worked their butts off to be funny professionally. And that's honestly what separates them from people who are just funny at family gatherings or funny in the group or, funny on the phone or funny in a Zoom meeting. Anyway, there's a lot there. I love thinking about this. I love talking about this. So I wanted to share that with you as a lesson that I got enhanced and refined by a conversation I had with a coach on this very podcast. So thank you for listening. Let me know if you kind of vibe with that. Actually, I feel like a lot of you would. But let me know. It's obviously the kind of thing I love to talk about. So, and I gotta say, I got some more for you in the can. So I'm going to talk to you again on these lessons minisodes very soon.